Okay, I welcome you all with love. And we start with a prayer merging the heavens and the earth, which is really the way to walk on this earth plane. Shemiku Kudashabihu Ushihinte. Be ilu or imu layad Shemiki Lufke. Idasham Shem Kuzream Kolam. Amen. In his book by Dostoevsky called The Brothers Karamazov, there's a clear and potent statement. When the existence of God is no longer believed in, people can do anything. Now that may not be the perfect exact quote, but that's what we're talking about. And what we're looking at in our society is just that. We can look at the kind of bigger picture, which is a better way to understand it, rather than the Parkland shooting or the Columbine shooting or all the different shootings and bombings that are going on. And taking kind of a bigger view, since the 1960s, when the existence of the divine has been kind of pushed out of the real essential core belief systems, what we see in the statistics from 1960 to 2010 is there's a divorce rates have doubled, teen suicides have tripled, violent crimes have quadrupled, the number of people in jail is 5 times higher, and depression is 10 times more. That's a pretty heavy statement about the cracking and the moral and ethical degeneration of the American mind. The drug use has gone skyrocketed. About 20% of the adult population is on 5 medications or drugs. 70 million people are taking legally prescribed psychoactive drugs. We have 60 million alcoholics. The United States is the main exporter of pornography. And it leads the world in teen pregnancies. You would have to really not be able to see what's going on, not to say something is happening. Something is out of order. And it didn't happen last week or last month. It's been going on really since before the 60s, but that's when the research kind of highlights it. The statistics are something to be concerned about. I woke up to it more in 1963 with the assassination of JFK. And when Kennedy was assassinated, it was like, oh my goodness, I was a junior in college. What? What just happened? And then we researched it a little further, and I will tell you at that time, a good deal of the population understood that this was a more significant assassination than simply one person doing this. That this was clearly a major event at the top levels of government. And if we look a little closer, there's a consistent political degenerative behavior, moral degenerative behavior at the very leadership of the country. And I don't want to make it the Democrats and Republicans, because we're not talking at that level. We're talking about a little bit bigger level. I'm talking at deep state level. I'm talking about presidents and vice presidents becoming presidents. I'm talking a variety of levels where there's a sense that the leadership is degenerating. I'm talking about the different kinds of ceremonies that are going on, like by, for example, the head of the previous head of the Democratic Party, with their blood drinking and satanic worship going on. It's like, what is going on? I'm talking about pedophilia at the topest levels. So we don't want to dwell too much on it. I'm trying to make a point. That when the leaders act that way, guess what? When the parents of a family are acting morally, ethically, and spiritually in degenerate ways, that is certainly going to influence the children. And we're looking at these school shooters, and they're at the bottom of the ring. They're a symptom of a much larger degeneration. And so we have the young male misguided testosterone acting out, in psychological terms we call it the identified patient, the dysfunction of the whole family. Now, it's not an accident that the research actually shows that all but one of the major kind of mass shootings that took place, according to CNN, were boys who did not have a father in their home. Only one. And so the Parkland shooting was an example of a fatherless home. So we see that that's a role. We have, just to make a point, we see that girls in a fatherless home have a very, very high rate of teenage suicide and teenage pregnancy. The boys, more or less violent crime and getting put in jail. The point I'm making is, when the leadership isn't there, you get acting out. Seriously. I've worked with gangs on the south side of Chicago, not too far where former President Obama did work. And there's some very interesting things that went down. And one of them is, well, I was looking at the Abraham Lincoln Center, 3800 South. If anybody knows anything about Chicago, it's a very segregated area. And somebody came with a gun to shoot somebody, and there's a big crowd, and then everybody's there, and a bus came by, and a little kid got hit, and suddenly we have a huge riot going on. I mean, thousands of people. I just happened to be doing some teaching and working with the gang members, and this is a power moment for them, positive power moment. So we said, fine, let's deal with this. So we went out in the street, which is right across from the settlements and so forth, and literally were able to disperse the crowd. We're talking thousands of people ready to have a full-on riot. Now, the police wisely, there were at least 6 police cars in general. They were wise. They stayed out of the way because it's like, okay, we're handling it. They couldn't understand what was going on because they knew who the gang members were. But the point is, the kids got into a positive testosterone movement and really did a fantastic job. I remember meeting with the regional police afterwards. It's like, well, what happened here? I mean, they really couldn't believe it. But the point is, yes, with proper adult direction, teenage male testosterone actually can go in the right direction and be extremely productive. Later, which it wasn't just teenager boys, but the boys and girls, we actually created a garden in a vacant lot. You know, we had to get permission from the city of Chicago. But my point is, positive direction really, really works. Okay. Now we have an example of that. Bezalel and Oholahab created and built the sanctuary. They were 12 and 13. That positive teenage male testosterone happening. So it does have to do with leadership. And when the leadership is there, mature leadership, then the energy is directed in a good and a very, very healing, positive way. So we look at the Parkland shooting, it's like, that's a symptom. So I'm making that point. Now there's more going on. It isn't natural for humans to want to kill other humans. Oh, you can say, well, what are you talking about? Well, in World War II, when people had a chance to shoot at the enemy, only 20% did it. And then in the Korean War, that increased. In Vietnam, it increased more. And there's a reason for that, up to about 60%, is that they developed the science of killology. And I'm not joking, you can look it up. It's how do you motivate humans, soldiers, to kill other soldiers? It's just not our natural tendency. So think about that for a moment. There is a science, it does exist, and then with the programming that they did to increase that willingness to kill other human beings, we can start looking at the video games. We can start looking at the violence in Hollywood. It's like by the time a teenager graduates high school, they've seen 100,000 murders and 200,000 acts of violence. We don't think that that's not affecting consciousness. So they've taken that science of killology to make soldiers more, quote, effective. Going against the grain of the natural tendency for humans is not to do that. Okay, you know, that's the hard one. But again, the natural tendency is not to be killing other people of your species. People may fight for territory, they may do this, but that's really important to understand. So we've gone against it, we've reprogrammed our society in the other direction. And the story goes on, but it's really, again, top to bottom. And when we look at it, and I'm talking now as a community psychiatrist, as a commissioned lieutenant commander in the public health service, doing a lot of work with community mental health, and I'm seeing it from that point of view in the bigger picture. And I'm also, having worked on the south side of Chicago, I have an idea of what things can be in not such a good way. But what we look at, and people are focusing on the symptom without seeing the whole, I'm going to get to the answer to that, is that in cities where there's gun control, you have the highest rate of murders. Baltimore is seen as the most violent, and they're up to about 54 murders per 100,000. Actually, St. Louis is 59, Chicago is 25, and where they don't have gun control, it's like 17. It's significantly lower in the cities where there really isn't much gun control in terms of per 100,000. So there's a message there. That really, focusing on the symptom is not what's going to do anything that's meaningful. In fact, there have been literally thousands of studies trying to link the effect of gun control to violence and murders, and they were not able to make any link. In other words, gun control had no effect on the amount of murders and mass murders. The U.S. is 11th in the world in mass murders and less than 25th in terms of total rates of murder. So really, and we're focused because a lot of news gets put that way, but the truth is we're not really up there compared to some of the other nations. And that isn't really what's going on. That's a symptom of a breakdown in society. Now we get back to the statement. When we take the existence of God out of the picture, anything goes. So what we're seeing is a serious breakdown in society. I'm talking about world society. It isn't just America. It's world society. And what's the solution? Well, it may seem obvious to some people and totally not obvious to others, but what's called returning to ethical and moral and spiritual awareness, bringing back the 10 commandments, also known as the 10 speakings, back into a way of life that honors, that's honored in our society. That's the pre-60s, okay? And so the solution is actually pretty straightforward if we're actually interested in the solution. We want to put Band-Aids on it, it doesn't work, gun control doesn't work, then that really isn't the issue. We have bombings, we have stabbings. Actually, the data shows that 3 times more people, kids, are killed in schools from knife attacks and beating up, killing each other that way. So it's really bogus to think gun control has anything to do with anything, and it's not the focus. The focus that I'm talking about is how do we repent and turn it around back to increasing moral, ethical, and spiritual awareness, getting back in the line and bring the existence of God back into the center of public consciousness. Then we're going to have some changes in society in a good way, because we're looking at the total picture with a total approach to remedy a very serious degeneration of the American and the world mind. May we all be blessed that we are able to change our ways and return to the last 3,000 years of following this way. Not that it was ever perfect, because it isn't, and it hasn't been, but it's a lot better than it is now. And return to that way and begin to bring peace and really societal upliftment, so we can fulfill our mission of our oneness and truly wake up to the divine in our lives. May everyone be blessed that we are all willing and able to contribute to this transformation in society on every level. Amen.